Okay, a second really important Greek philosopher that we want to talk about is Aristotle. And so Aristotle is going to um, follow on after Plato and is going to modify, is kind of significantly modify parts of the Platonic tradition. And a few things that we want to pick up on from Aristotle that are going to turn out to be important in later Christian theology. Now, I say later Christian theology because kind of early Christian theology, some thinkers like, say, Origen, did have access to some of Aristotle's works, and we'll draw on this, but Aristotle's works sort of get lost in the West because of kind of a whole bunch of cultural and just material factors. That the manuscripts simply aren't really available. They kind of resurface later toward the later Middle Ages, and really resurface originally through Islamic scholars. And then it's really Thomas Aquinas is one of the key figures in the Western medieval tradition, Christian tradition, who then really engages with Aristotle and brings Aristotle back into deep conversation with Christian theology, with a whole bunch of interesting dynamics and repercussions. And we'll talk about that when we eventually get next week to talking about sort of the history of Christian theological ethics, and we'll talk about Aquinas. So here are some key thoughts from Aristotle that we want to just have in our heads. Aristotle is also very interested in metaphysics. Metaphysics is just sort of what exists. And part of his interest in this kind of talks about causation. What are the causes of the universe? Why does the universe exist? What is the universe for? And Aristotle develops a notion of a fourfold sense of causality: the material cause, the efficient cause, the formal cause, and the final cause. So you can think of the material cause as sort of the stuff out of which something is made. So think of a statue, and I have a picture right on the screen here of a statue of Aristotle, right? So what is that made of? It's made out of marble. So the material cause is that there's marble. The efficient cause is the actual action in bringing something to be. So the efficient cause for the statue here of Aristotle is that there's a sculptor who is chipping away the marble and making it into the shape of Aristotle. The formal cause is the form of the thing, or the kind of idea of the thing. And so what's the formal cause? In the sculptor's mind, the sculptor has an idea of the shape of Aristotle, the form of Aristotle, so to speak. And the final cause is the ultimate purpose or goal or end for which the thing is created, exists. So what is the final cause of the statue of Aristotle? It may be that people can enjoy and appreciate the beauty of the statue and get some sense of, if not exactly what Aristotle looked like, at least what kind of person Aristotle is, or to represent something about Aristotle as a philosopher to the people, and so on. Now, this is going to be really important in medieval Christian theology, and again, particularly in Aquinas. And when Aquinas is trying to work through ideas about the doctrine of creation, and how does creation work, and how does the kind of actions of created things, like a dog chooses to eat its food, or a human being chooses to take a class, right? How does that relate to God's sovereignty, right? Is God sort of mechanically directing, okay, at this moment, dog, eat food? And Aquinas, and I think good Christian theology is going to say no. I mean, those created things have their own sort of space. A dog choosing to eat food is a dog choosing to eat food. A human being choosing to take a class or to do something good or to do something evil is ultimately something the human being is responsible for, right? There's a kind of free will. But how do you square that with divine sovereignty? Well, one way to do it is to sort of, or at least try to do it, is to sort of take this idea of these different senses of causality. And we can say that, well, kind of the material cause is the human body that acts. The efficient cause is that there's a human being making a choice. And the formal cause is that the human being has some idea in his or her mind and inclination in his or her soul to do something. The final cause, though, is ultimately God. And that doesn't mean that God is sort of in some sequence of time pushing things around, but it means the purpose through which all things are created is God, and the goal of creation is God, the proper goal anyway. You can see then that how this will also get tied to the Platonic idea of evil, because it's missing the goal. Sin or evil is missing the goal. It's a deprivation of achieving that final cause. We'll talk more about that when we talk about Aquinas. If you happen to take my theology and science class next semester, which I'm really excited about, we're going to talk about this quite a bit. Well, modern science, just as a little preview, really through a kind of a long historical process, really eliminates the final causality, and really primarily looks at material and efficient causes, and that's kind of an interesting problem. Okay, some other things from Aristotle that we want to talk about: potential and actuality, the difference between potential and actuality. And again, this is part of Greek thought wrestling with this idea. These ideas relating to the one and the many. What potentially exists and what actually exists are different things. So again, take my example of the glass of Bordeaux. Someone is making wine. Now, potentially, there could be a really excellent glass of wine. There could be a particular glass of wine or a particular batch of wine that exhibits all of the qualities of an excellent batch of wine. But that potential might not be realized. The actuality of what is realized might be something quite a bit less. And so, but the potential is still something real. And metaphysically, the potential exists. It just isn't actualized. And this has some implications for how we think about the way the universe operates, what is behind the universe, and it relates to the questions of causality in terms of what is really the final cause, what is the universe really moving toward, what is the potential that it is moving toward, what is actual, is it kind of falling short of that motion. Now, related to these other two blocks is this block in the top right, which is action and contemplation. So, what are we talking about here? For Aristotle, the ultimate potential, the ultimate final cause or goal of human existence is the life of the mind, the life of contemplation, truly understanding. That's the potential toward which human beings are ideally moving. Now, action, the action that we take, the ways in which we live, the kind of practical virtues which we exhibit, acting as a leader in a political leader in a community, or as a craftsman, or whatever it might be, has value, but it primarily has value insofar as it moves us further toward the life of contemplation. In a sense, it has a secondary value. And then this relates to this bottom box of virtue, habit, and community. So ideally, the kind of the ethical norm is that we're engaging in practices that develop habits that put us, into kinds of community and develop then virtues that move us closer toward this ideal of the contemplative life, kind of consistent with our station in society. Now, again, all of this is going to have some interesting implications for later Christian thought. And I think you can already see, some of the tensions this is going to draw out, because we do have this tradition that the contemplative life is sort of the highest value. Certainly in the late medieval tradition, certainly in, say, Aquinas's thought again, the beatitude, the ultimate goal, what we would call heaven, is existing eternally in the contemplation of God. It's a very sort of abstract, in a sense. Abstract isn't really the right word. Ideal. Now, again, there are sort of along the way practical things that have to be done to develop the virtues and habits to get us to that place. And that's going to cause a tension with perhaps some Hebraic concepts of eschatology and some concepts that we, perhaps want to draw back into our sense of eschatology that are more material, right, and are more grounded in the material creation. And how we sort of figure all that out is going to have a real impact on our ethical thought.